ladies and gentlemen, we are very thrilled and happy to have a returning guest on the show. This has been a lot. We were just talking about it. This has been a lot of people's one of their highlight episodes. I consider this episode like a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
It was such a deep dive, so interesting. It's the esoteric Mormonism episode that we did. It's called Demonic Counters and Esoteric Mormonism, I believe. Is that the title?
Yeah.
Okay. That's like one of y'all's favorites. It's one of my favorites. We have returning Mr. Bobby McGann.
Hey.
Did I say that right?
What's up? Yeah, that's perfect.
McGann?
Yeah, McGann.
Okay. All right, cool. Bobby McGann in the house, y'all.
We got to give a shout out to Marki. He couldn't be with us today.
Right.
Yes.
You know?
Oh,
We
he's
miss
busy.
you.
He's got a lot going on. He's got a kid on the way. He just got
Congrats.
married. And it's the holidays, so can't blame him. He's got his hands full.
Yeah, and Bobby somehow or another, literally, not even kidding here, became my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Dude, several towns away. So.
It's crazy because we had talked about even before meeting you, I didn't even know you lived in Wilmington, but I had always wanted to move to Wilmington just because, I don't know, it's good vibes or whatever. And then obviously talking with Jeremy and stuff like that, he's like, yo, my brother lives out in Wilmington. I was like, well, that's even more of a reason to move out there. And so finally it just happened. We moved out here and we apartment searched. We looked through, I don't know, 10, 15 different apartment complexes. And I was like, the nicest one. I like it so much. And it just so happens to be the one right next to yours. And
next door.
Yeah. I can see Ryan's window from my deck and you can see.
I can see your deck from my window.
Yeah.
It was funny. He moved in. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, I know that complex, because we're like the same company, but they're like different complexes
Right.
next door. So I'm like, yeah, cool. Let's find out how close we are. And we walk outside and it's like, oh.
No,
It's next door.
So I don't think we linked up until like a week or two after I moved here. But for the entire 2 weeks, I was trying to figure out. I was like, okay, I know we went to the pool over here, and so I know we walked a little ways up this way, and so I honestly drove around your apartment complex for a little bit, and I was trying to decipher which one was, and I could not. And then
You were too close to it.
I was not looking in the right direction because literally it's right there. And then
Yeah. So this worked out very perfectly.
Remind me again how you and Jeremy met?
I want to say the first time I chilled with Jeremy was probably through TeamSpeak, probably playing World of Warcraft.
Oh, that checks out.
Mr. Pandaria World of Warcraft.
Oh, wow. That's a long time ago.
That was the first time I ever played WoW. We played Mr. Pandaria. I don't remember anything of it, but I think that's the first time I talked to him. And then ever since then, we were in the same TeamSpeak. We were in the same Discord.
Did y'all have a mutual friend, or did you?
Yeah, we did.
Lots of them.
Well, yeah, we have a large friend group, and so Jeremy Knapp is the link between me and your brother Jeremy.
Yeah.
But then my friend Alex that I grew up with is friends with Jeremy, which it's all convoluted. But apparently it all started with this kid Mitchell that we knew in high school who was friends with Jeremy Knapp and some guy named Riley, and they all kind of started the group, and then me and Alec kind of joined in later, and then I met Jeremy.
But yeah, it's like you happen to live close to us or something like that. And it's like, oh my God.
Well, when I was first meeting your brother Bledsoe, I lived in Virginia at the time, and then I went to Argentina, obviously, came back, and my parents had moved to North Carolina, and then Fayetteville and Sanford are not, but 45 minutes away. So
Right.
Yeah. That was the first time I've known Jeremy. I've known other Jeremy. I've known Alec for
15 years or
15
so?
years,
Yeah.
close to 15
Close
years.
to it.
I'd never seen any of it. Well, I knew Alec, but Jeremy, you obviously, I'd never met any of you in person for 15 years. So it was
That's crazy.
I met Jeremy for the first
Now
time.
we're next door neighbors.
Yeah, you know what? I remember it must have been a year or two ago, Jeremy being like, dude, I'm finally gonna. Did you meet him that recently or how long ago?
I met Jeremy for the first time maybe last year.
That's what I'm. Okay.
maybe
I'll play
last
golf
year.
or something.
Yeah, we played golf. Then after that, shortly after we met your dad, I met you.
Well, maybe a little before last year, because I met you around January of last year.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So maybe a little bit before that, because I know I golfed with Jeremy out in wherever he lives. I can't remember, but I went out there to golf with him, and that was my first time, I think, meeting him.
Yeah, because I remember him talking a year and a half ago or so. He's like, I'm finally going to get to meet my friend Bobby I've been friends with online for like 15 years. I remember that now. And now you're right there.
Yeah, and I'm right here. Yeah.
His brother's wedding was really cool because not only was it a beautiful wedding, but it was like it brought more of those people together.
That's awesome.
Who had never met in person.
We got to meet Brando. I don't know if you saw Brando while he was there, but
he was there?
he was there for like 20 minutes.
No, I didn't see him.
Before the event even started, he was just...
Well, I went to elementary school with him. I've known him my whole life, you know? But cool. It's still cool.
Yeah. It was really cool.
Very cool. Well, last time we left off, I know that you had some like pretty crazy stories to tell in Argentina, but just after, has it been about a year since we put that one out?
It has to have been about a year. It seems like maybe even over a year.
I'll pull it up.
A year and a couple months or something.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I know where we left off. You had that encounter in Argentina, but I know just us talking naturally over time, like there were some things that maybe we didn't discuss.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a lot of stories in the back pocket. Not all of them are like paranormal type experiences, but some of them are. And but I want to preface that like the story that I told last time, that's like my unique story.
That's your
like,
banger.
Yeah, that's my banger. That's the jaw dropper. And that's.
Should we like give a little Cliff Notes version real quick?
So we do have a lot of new listeners.
Do you want me to give the Cliff Notes, or you guys want to do?
If you, I mean, it'd be great.
Okay,
Just
I'm gonna do like a generic,
like a high level overview.
Like, so high level overview. If you guys want to add in, just add in.
Like
that
the version
episode,
you tell at parties.
Nick, that episode came out. What is it? July 27th of 22.
Wow. So
and it's
episode,
episode 53, Esoteric Mormonism and Demonic Encounters.
Awesome.
Wow, it feels like not that long ago, to be honest.
I know. I know.
It's insane how quickly it goes by.
Yeah.
It does. Okay.
So the party version.
The party version is so living in Argentina, a lot of like voodoo-esque, like umbandista like stuff. We ended up running out of light or electricity, so we didn't have electricity, so we had to buy candles. We ended up buying some like air quotes like blessed or cursed candles, and
which are used in like Santeria,
The
right?
more or less, yes. A lot of people use them for like non-nefarious or like non-whatever purposes, but the ones that we had bought were the ones that come with like a little prayer card that like more or less you give something to get something. And so we had been told not to read the little like prayer card that came with it, and someone ended up doing it, and then something happened, like some odd ghostly type stuff happened. So there was this weird like dark figure that was in my room, and then it like moved from left or right, and it moved into like my like roommate's room, and it started messing with him. And so that's more or less what happened. And so it was like a cursed like few days.
Yeah.
I want to add some insight to that, just for anybody listening to understand like the power of this kind of stuff, and not to mess with this stuff. Is like you guys were innocent kids. Like I'm sure it's okay if I say like you were Mormon missionaries, right? On a mission, and like you didn't even your friend who read it didn't even necessarily believe.
Right.
He was just reading it like, oh, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
You know, but imagine the people who do believe.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And like get involved and have the intention to invoke something.
Right.
I know people who do that.
Right. And you have that intensity of experience that you had. Right. I want to urge people to go listen to episode 53 if you don't know the story, because we tell it in a long segment there. And it's crazy, dude. And like you guys had no clue what you were even getting into, and it was more or less an accident.
Right.
I can only imagine.
Well, we were talking about when it was Halloween and we were going out. We went out to that what was it?
Satellite.
We went to Satellite, awesome. And we were having a good time, right? And we were talking about like the effects of Halloween, and this is just my like camp of belief, but like, and I don't want to talk in like absolutes, but like I feel like Halloween is the time where like everyone, whether they're like having the attention to like bring about like the paranormal or not, like just the acceptance that's like, oh, it's Halloween, we can like celebrate ghosts, and we can celebrate like, you know, zombies and all this stuff that's like more occult in nature, I think makes it more prevalent in like our realm of existence.
Because so many people focusing on it.
People are focusing on it. Like, I think that's the case in my experience, where it's like, whether I believe in this like candle prayer or not, like something exists, something's tied to it, and like that gives it at least some power in this.
And
like,
the
realm.
People of the region believe in it.
Very heavily in that regard. And so along with Halloween, like, you know, dressing up as ghosts, dressing up as zombies, skeletons, and all that stuff. It's not nefarious. It's not evil in any sense, but like there is that little part where it's like enough belief in a topic or in a subject or a being or whatever does make it's like, you know, in my belief, it's like that makes its power more
For sure.
prevalent.
I mean, we just did the Halloween episode recently, and we talked about the origins of like Sam Hain, right? And the origin is literally that like people would put costumes on and stuff like that so that they could like purge the evil from their bodies and like
Let their shadow out.
yeah. And so that's kind of been a tradition for
Ever.
yeah, I mean,
Forever.
we're talking about
Right.
ancient traditions. So like I believe exactly what you're saying. I believe that the longer that tradition is upheld, like the through line of that power has remained.
Oh, okay. So that brings a question to my mind. It's like, do you think humans now are more evil or less evil than they were back in Sam? What was it?
Sam Hain.
Sam Hain.
That's
Do you think people are more evil now, or were they more evil back then?
I think it's the same.
It's complicated because I think people are inherently good, but then like the problem is we have this secret power structure at the top trying desperately to constantly pervert us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Trick our minds to be sad and nihilistic and dumb and feed us
Right.
poisonous crap. And you know
and
what I
I
mean?
would
Like,
say that power system has a stronger grip now
Right.
than it ever has.
yeah. So like they
So I
are
think-
more evil.
And I think that by proxy, humans maybe have more potential. It's easier
Right.
to be like evil, quote
Right.
unquote. It's easier to give into that because
Society is built on just this materialistic
yeah,
lifestyle.
exactly.
So if we take that, okay, so I'm just going to take it as like blank, like, yes, people have more potential. Like potentially we are more evil now. I just think in my opinion that through like that ritual of like purging the evil or purging the bad spirits from your body is probably like causing the like Ethereum of this realm to like permeate the paranormal through. I think that, I mean, again, like I have no proof of like anything, but like I think
Sure,
ghosts are
intuition.
real. I think like Bigfoot is probably real.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
those types of things. I think they allow those types of experiences to happen more due to like
Right.
purging all of this like negative energy that people have. And I mean, in my personal opinion, again, like I think people are more evil nowadays.
Oh, you agree?
I think they are. Yeah, I think the potential again for with Oppenheimer.
I think you might be right. Yeah, you might be right there.
The atom bomb is like now something that has never been like that has never existed in human society, and now that we have the potential to kill millions of people in an instant without really giving it much thought, I think that yes, that there is more potential. There's more like evil intention too with like the power system that is like trying to control us or
Yeah.
trying to influence us to think certain ways or do certain things. I think that whether we realize it or not, that we are like there is a negative experience always like being portrayed through media, through music, through whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, we talked about in an episode, I forget the title of the episode, but it was the one where we went deep on theosophy.
The ageless wisdom.
That, yes. We had talked about how theosophic belief systems, they believe that like the quote unquote Antichrist was like World War I and II.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and if you think about it, even with what you just said with Oppenheimer, from World War I forward, it was like humans had more opportunity than ever to be evil.
Right.
And
I would
then
say.
World War I happened. The Great Depression followed. I mean, some of the darkest times in modern history.
Well, not to mention, like, because of those wars, millions upon millions of people died.
Just
like,
vanished.
like within years.
which is
It was unheard of.
that's traumatic energy, chaotic, traumatic, dark energy. All those deaths being released instantaneously into
Right.
this realm.
Yeah.
Like that's scary. So I think we have, sadly, we just have access to more things.
Right. I think I can't speak exactly where I heard this, but it's like people. Oh no, the Akashic records. Like you have like the memories or like the memory bank of like your ancestors and stuff like that. And I don't think that it's entirely impossible that we carry on the evils of others in the world. And so I think again, like with the purging of like the the sin within, or like the evil or negative energy. I think it's just more prevalent nowadays, and that's why we're getting so many sightings. We're getting so many like paranormal experiences, and we're getting them more on tape too. I mean, your dad throws up like a video or two every day of just like some light being just floating through the sky. So I think they are happening more frequently. And I think they're being captured more frequently.
The balance is returning because of all the evil in the world. But that's what the beings told my dad. So I mean, I like to believe on the one hand that people are good, but I do fear that you're correct. But like,
I feel like their nature is to be good.
Yeah.
I think that the outside influences are making them try to be more bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're convincing them that bad is not bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? That bad is good. Like,
right.
You know, I mean, even with, you can just take something as simple of an example as like fame, like the vanity of fame, right? Just something so simple and seems harmless, right? But then a kid who looks up to someone who is very vain and flaunts their fame and money and stuff like that will see that and be like, oh, that's what I have to go for.
Yeah.
I have to go. And the pursuit of fame and money and those like really vain things will destroy your soul.
Yeah.
It'll tear your soul apart.
So there's been two ideas that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's like, what is like this existence? Like what is like our realm of existence, and where are the other realms in comparison? And then the other idea that I've had is, and they somewhat tie into each other, is like, what is consciousness? And so I guess I'm going to start off. My first question is, do you guys think that consciousness is given, or do you think it's developed?
I think that before everything, there was one big ball or mass of consciousness out there. We talked a lot in recent, like the spirit science episodes, about consciousness, its relation with energy, things like that. Like one of the fundamentals of science is that energy can't be created or destroyed.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Changed.
Right.
Yeah,
It can only be changed.
Transmuted.
So I think initially it was like given, not necessarily like willingly. It just like, I don't know. It was distributed some way or another.
Okay.
And then I also believe, this is just me, that each tiny little node of consciousness has its own progression.
Okay.
Yeah.
And evolves because each little piece is trying to evolve back to the big one.
Okay.
Right. I think so too.
That's what I seem to. That's what my intuition kind of tells me.
I just had a thought, and naturally we don't have to go. I'm not trying to put you on the spot either. It's just spontaneous thought. But, and if you're not comfortable with me saying this, we can cut it
For sure.
But are you pretty comfortable with saying that like you're no longer a practicing Mormon?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't practice. No.
Okay, cool. So the last time we hung out at my dad's house, it was the night of your brother's wedding, right?
Which we hung out 2 nights.
Right.
One before and one after.
Yeah, the night of the wedding.
Oh yeah.
I'll get him over it.
Yeah.
But that was awesome.
Yeah, it was really.
But
cool.
that night, I think it was you who was telling me this. This is the part that I was like, if you're not cool with me, you know, I don't know if there might be family watching. I just don't know the rules if this kind of stuff is really allowed to be revealed. But you were telling me some pretty cool stuff that exists within Mormon scripture, and it was something about like how the main purpose of life here is to keep incarnating up to become infinity.
Well,
can you elaborate?
Yeah. So there. In the Mormon like belief system, there's a very like base knowledge of like what, again, like all Christian religions always try to answer the questions of like, where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? And I want to say the generic like Christian response, including Mormons, is like, our existence here is to be good people, be followers of Christ, and like gain light and knowledge, like just be good people, right? Try to become more Christ-like, which is like, you know, an eternal being.
And I do agree with that.
Yeah, it's a good practice for sure. There is a deeper note of doctrine in the Mormon religion where it's called eternal increase, and that is and that brings another like philosophical question: is God like omnipotent, omniscient? Like, is he perfect? Is he ever continuing. And so the concept of eternal increase is that you, even after you die, there is still progression in the spirit realm or whatever. And that when, say, like, you are granted into the afterlife, depending on your status here in earth life, you can go to one of three kingdoms. There's a telestial kingdom, a terrestrial kingdom, and I could be confusing them. And then there's a celestial kingdom. And then there is the celestial kingdom is supposedly where God lives and exists.
It's like the perfect realm.
It is the perfect realm. That is like the ideal heaven. Right. And then the other two realms are like, you were like somewhat good people.
It's like mid-heaven.
Mid-heaven. That's
like kind of mid.
But those three tiers exist outside of even hell. Like, hell is its own place. But there are grades of heaven. So the celestial is the highest, where you can live with God, but like the telestial and terrestrial are like mid. So I can't tell you what it's like, but apparently the celestial is the highest. And even within the celestial realm, if you've completed with all your vows as like a member of the church, or the Mormon church rather, you were baptized, you were sealed in the temple through marriage, you completed with all your duties.
That's interesting that you just said that. I didn't know that.
We can talk more about it if you'd like, but based on like your merits or like the vows that you've completed and stuff like that, you are granted like the opportunity of eternal increase, which is the increasing of light and knowledge infinitely.
Wow.
And so, and there's a promise within like the Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants that is like, we are to become like God, which is like, an omnipotent being. So that's where my question is like, is God 100% perfect? He knows everything. Because if he is, then what is the need for eternal increase? And
there's this cool quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he says, God is either not all-knowing, not omnipotent, or not all good.
Right.
It's one or the other, because like you have so much pain and turmoil and evil and just unfair, like kids dying of cancer, and like just disgusting, awful stuff. So like an all good God would never allow that to happen.
Right.
I disagree.
So if he's not letting that happen, then that means he's not all powerful. You know what I mean?
No, I disagree.
I also disagree. Yeah, because it's like we are experiencing these things because we are separated from that state. You know what I mean? We're not with God.
Well, that quote is in reference to the like Christian like monotheistic,
right?
God, like the bearded guy,
right?
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think that God is just like all of us. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily. I almost feel like the only decision God ever made was to just split up into infinite pieces and try to experience the universe.
Right. So if the mission is to experience all, then evil would be included. The bad things would have to be included. And then that makes me also think the law of duality, that you get just as much bad as you get good. And then I also think that trials and tribulations are good.
Oh, yeah, in the grand scheme of
things. For growth
yeah.
of character,
For sure. Yeah, we're just not trained to see it that way.
Yeah.
But it's like, I personally think that God is only perfect harmony, love, and light. And that's, what we're seeking to be and to connect with, but we exist here where we are separated from that. You know what I mean?
But again, like, I'm not going to take one camp or the other just because I don't know. But I like to relate it to is like, why did like fathers or mothers tell their kids to go to school or to like, play a sport or whatever, even if they don't like it? It's for their own good. So there is some, there's some notion of doing something that is hard or doing something that is, not necessarily fun or possibly like, even dying. Like why would a father or parent or mother allow their child to like suffer from some ailment if it wasn't to some end? And it's like, why would God allow these kids or the people in general just to die and go through all this suffering? Well, I would say it's probably for a learning experience. There's probably some kind of conditioning for like the other realm.
There's a lesson to be learned. And like the Zen Buddhists believe that your soul like consents to every experience that your incarnation will have. Like before you even incarnate into that being, they see like, all right, so this kid like lives to be like 10 and then he dies, but I haven't experienced this specific thing in a former incarnation, so maybe I need to get that experience.
Yeah. Because the grand scheme of the souls is about all the lifetimes, not just the one we're in right now.
Right. And that's hard to concept. That's hard to conceptualize.
But that's the point of awakening is opening up to understanding like, oh my God, I'm not just who I am right now. It's that ego death, right? Like I'm so much more than just Ryan Bledsoe. I've lived a million lives, and you have, and you have, and you have. You know,
what was the Einstein quote from last episode?
Which one?
This is your soul's.
Here, I'll read it. I want you to hear this
because it goes right along with reincarnation.
Yeah.
So Einstein has this quote: "We are slowed down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned into the cosmos. We are souls dressed up in sacred biochemical garments, and our bodies are the instruments through which our souls play their music."
Interesting. I like from that. I like the word "slowed down" the most. It's just because life does seem slowed down, especially. I don't know. Like everything is. Whether you think about it or not, I personally see it. Everything is monotonous. Like everything has a pace, and I think that when we're on like that other side, I think it's going to be like high pace,
infinitely faster,
the speed of light or whatever. I think it's just going to be a different lifestyle that we can't comprehend, and so that's kind of where I come from. Where it's like if God is like this perfect human being. He's just doing everything. Like he's been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it like I think that's kind of partially true because like we are all God. So he's done everything through us.
Right.
Right now, it's happening now.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And always and in the future too.
Yeah. Time is just a big old spaghetti ball.
That makes me think of like the Flash.
Oh yeah.
And when, no. Think about this. When the Flash is like running at that speed, that I'm not a superhero.
When he's like running, bro.
When he's like,
it's the Speed Force.
When he's running, think of that as like the afterlife or the in between. And every time he comes to a stop or a walking pace, he's living life. And then death, rebirth, slowed down, living life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of something else that would move like that, but like that's the first thing that came up.
No, that kind of blew my mind.
Probably because I'm looking at y'all.
Like when you said, after we're gone, we'll experience things at the speed of light. Like that's kind of mind blowing because like from what we know, the soul is light.
Yeah, I've never heard it said like that,
Same.
but it makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen thousands of lights. Your soul is light. Like. That makes sense.
And so it moves, everything moves.
It's kind of like DMT, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I can speak to that experience. It's like you get in there and it's like, it took weeks for a lot of that to come back to me because you're seeing so many things simultaneously all at once so rapidly. And it's like...
Your eyes, your body can't handle, your mind can't even handle it right now.
For weeks, it was coming back to me.
Yeah. It's the same with me. It was just like constant, like just little glimpses of something that happened or whatever.
You were catching up.
Yeah. Because you're literally seeing like... infinite things at once. It's like I could say that and people are like, yeah, right. I'm dead serious. There's a reason there's all this mystique about it. It's crazy, but yeah, I imagine it's like that where reality's not so linear and it's folding in and on itself and it's rapid and like it's crazy.
I'm kind of loving this like philosophical like philosophy corner with Bobby right now.
He started asking us questions.
I know.
I love it.
Like I'm obsessed with this.
I love it.
You got anything else like scratching your brain because this is awesome. I love this.
In the terms of like consciousness, we were talking about consciousness and more or less if it is developed or given or like whatever. And I think it is developed because when you're a baby, you're not fully conscious. Do you guys remember your first memory?
My first.
I do.
Oh,
I think,
actually, what is it?
I think it was my first birthday party.
Yeah.
I remember being in a high chair with a birthday cake and a candle, and it was like, happy birthday. I don't know if it was my first or second, but I feel like it was my first birthday.
Yeah.
A flash.
I have a weird first memory because I don't think I should have it as a memory, and my mom like confirmed it. I remember I told my mom, it was like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. I was talking to my mom and I was like, I remember when I remember being a baby. I have this weird memory of being a baby and like the nurse was like this bigger woman with a huge mole on her face and she like slapped me on the bottom of the foot for some reason. And I was like saying that, and she was like, there's no way you can remember that. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, that was before we took you home from the hospital. Like, they were making sure you were breathing.
Wow.
Like, and so I pondered that for such a long time. I was like, why do I remember that? Was it like a recurring dream that went into my state of like evolved conscious? You know, if I'm a little older, maybe I'll remember it. But like, I guess I remember something from like way like that point.
Like within days of being born.
Yeah, which is
I've heard other stories.
Yeah, I've heard people of like having memories of the womb.
I believe you really have that memory.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's not that crazy to me.
I had a womb flashback on mushrooms.
Yeah, you did.
No
you
way.
did?
Yeah, and then I was like reborn. It was the craziest thing ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear about it.
It was just like I took this this dose that I thought was going to be smaller.
I warned you.
But I was like, oh, no big deal. But I did all the proper preparation and like, you know, I was good. And I just had this like, there was no stimulus. Like I didn't have the TV on. There was no music. It was just me laying on the couch and the dog. And I started hearing this sound, like this music. And it was like, I say club music, but it was only because it was like very like consistent house music, like a which like could have been my own heartbeat, but like remixed by the, you know. But anyway, it was like this very like tribal like drum line like constant thing, and it wasn't like psychosis. It was like pleasant, like I was jamming. And then I just started like feeling this overwhelming like sensation of love, and I was just like laying there just like encapsulated in love. Dang. Like tears just streaming down my I'm not a crier, you guys, everybody knows this.
I'm a tough guy.
I'm just not emotional, but that's my own problem to work through. But I'm just sitting there crying, and then I closed my eyes and I was like, I had this like womb flashback. Everything was like, wow, like just love, but like love and like tight and warm and like I don't know how, and safe.
So
and
you like felt like you were in the womb.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
And then I remember like opening my eyes and like kind of coming down from this, and then like doing everything I could to like go back to that feeling. Oh, wow. And I couldn't get back because I'm like declining, and I'm like just trying to recreate it over and over. And it was like it's hard. It was a while ago, so it's hard to recall. But yeah, very like, and then I had this very like reborn feeling. Interesting. Like just kind of fresh and new and like absolved of things like emotionally. It was very, it was a very awesome day.
So I gotta say, like from that story, it's like are humans naturally good? I mean, it sounds like in the womb, it just sounds like you're just still full of that love, like that just pure essence of love. And then you get out here and you're like,
it's
you get out here and you get an iPad.
Well, I also
start getting in traffic and you start hating a little bit.
Yeah. I also think that has to do with like the female like energy that's carrying you too.
Right.
Yeah, like that's a partnership there, you know. Like that's not just
like that's
the child.
Yeah, that's pure love, mother to child for sure.
That's insane. That's so awesome.
Where I was going with this was was like, okay, so my first memory, I didn't remember for the longest time, and then my mom showed me a picture, and then it like flooded into me. I was like, oh, like I do remember that, and that was like my first. I was sitting. We lived in a trailer park. I was sitting on this couch that smelled like cigarettes, and we had a dog that was a Jack Russell that I don't have any recall of, and I was sitting there petting him, and that is just my first memory, and the picture brought me back to that. But like my consciousness question is it developed? I think that it is, because number one, I don't remember anything prior to that, and I was probably like a year or 2 years old or something like that. And then I believe in also like higher consciousness, that we can obtain that, learn that in this lifetime. And I think that God obviously has a higher consciousness than everyone else. So it's like, if that is obtainable, then obviously like it is not given, it is learned, developed. Like you work through, through discipline. Yeah. And then, but also at the same time, it's like with this realm that we're in, like, I don't think that, say, like the paranormal, the ghosts or like the orbs that are happening, I don't think they're in this realm. I think they peek through.
Yeah.
I think it is like higher consciousness allows them to do that. That's mainly what I was getting at.
That's exactly what they told my dad. They come from the spirit world.
It is an earth that is just slightly transparent over top of us, and it's just always happening. We just don't catch it all the time, or like they don't have like maybe they have to do some type of meditation to break through to us. And it's like, so I think there are just layers to the existence that we live in. It's just multifaceted, up, down, left, right, diagonal, this way, that way.
Yeah.
I think that it's just all around us, and we just aren't attuned to it, and the majority of people aren't attuned.
To add to that, we talked about this on the Spirit Science episode, part 2,
which is going to be the next episode, by the way.
Oh, yeah. We are going to drop this one first, just because. But we just recorded it before this one. Y'all know how we do. We record multiple in a day. But anyway, we just talked about on that episode about the Dogon tribe, you know? And the Dogon tribe existed 5,000 years ago. They still exist today. And they basically are notorious because they had this extremely advanced spiritual system where they had all these like diagrams that they drew thousands of years ago of things that are exact replicas of what are being discovered now scientifically, like half-spin particles and things like that. And one of the things that they claimed all those aeons ago was that what the beings told them was that basically there exists a twin invisible spiritual dimension that's like you just described. It exists over top of ours. It's like the duality thing, right? Like we're in the material world. There's a spirit world that's perfectly meshed over ours. And a lot of the things that we experience, like synchronicities or, animal running across and it's like, oh my God, it's an omen or anything of that nature. It's the entities from that dimension taking that opportunity to kind of like manipulate the physical world to interact with you personally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they said that there are times when those dimensions cross where these entities can come through at a higher rate or whatever.
Right.
But like they also had this belief about there being some sort of time in the future where there's like an actual like external crossing of these dimensions where there will be a super accelerated rate of pass through between them. But yeah, it's like I think you might be right. Like even the Dogon tribe was saying the same thing about how it's like you just said, like these entities peering through. Oh, and then the other thing they said that this material world is the world of, it's like imperfect knowledge, but perfect action. Meaning we can, pick things up. We can do things. We can act on the material world. And then it's like the opposite is true, according to them, in the spirit world, where it's like perfect knowledge. They're omniscient. They're ascended to a higher state of consciousness. They're light beings, but they have imperfect action because of the rules of reality. They can't, they don't just walk up to everybody and say, behold, I'm a being. And I'm, everyone's like, well, why don't they just land on the president's lawn? Well, maybe they can't do that. You know what I mean?
It's going to be frustrating.
Maybe there's an agreement behind the scenes of reality where they have to let us develop it on our own and they could pop in every now and then and help us.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's like imperfect knowledge. We are ignorant. We're blind to the higher truth, but we can act. We're free to act. Our free will. We can do whatever we want. And then the opposite. Perfect knowledge, perfect ascension and existence, yet they are not free to infringe our free will and act on our dimension. So they give us signs. They give us little miracles that the point of that is to rock us and be like, whoa.
Have you ever noticed that the best teachers don't tell you the answer? They just guide you to it. I feel like there's some type of like wisdom in that it's like they're taking some type of like example from that realm. It's like a good teacher, say like, Jesus Christ, for example, he showed through action rather than he obviously did tell us a lot of stuff, but he also showed in metaphor. It wasn't completely laid out. You had to think about it a lot. You had to put it in practice to really understand it. So I think that there is probably like some type of humility that's needed when you get to that side. That's like, you're not going to be able to do all the things you want. You're going to know a lot of stuff, but you're not going to be able to do everything you want.
That's interesting too, because there's a passage in the Bible that talks about angels being envious of humans.
Yeah, there is.
Because humans have free will and we can do whatever we want.
Interesting.
And they can't do whatever they want, but they know everything.
In that line of thinking, it makes sense. You know.
It does.
Well, I'm going to take a dark turn on this because
take it dark, Bobby. Let's get dark.
Well, I mean, if we're talking
so
about,
I killed a witch.
that will get explained here in a little bit. But in terms of like having that knowledge, do you think that like the negative, like I don't want to say like demons, but like the negative angels, dark angels or whatever, the like the fallen, they also have that like concept of like knowledge.
Yeah.
And they still can't do that, but they're tricky. Like they don't abide by the rules. Mm-hmm. Like that's why they're there, because they didn't abide by the rules here or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's how they get in to. So for example, it's like with my past experience in the other episode, it's like, could that have been a dark, spirit or a negative spirit just trying to bend the rules a little bit just to like do something? And so I want to say, if this is the case, then yeah, like I think that they do have a perfect knowledge like the good angels, and that they just bend the rules to come in and play with us or to do something, you know what I mean?
That makes sense to me, because think about it this way. Like, okay, for instance, a very recent example of this, like you were just talking about, where angels can send signs and things like that. My brother's dog just passed away.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. So sad.
It is sad.
But that, they were feeling real down about. I mean, it was sudden, it was rough, and
like the other day.
Yeah, just a couple days ago, and the day after the dog passed away, my brother's wife Ashley, she sent him a picture of a cardinal in the exact spot that the dog used to sit all the time and look in the window at her, and the cardinal was looking in at her, and she texted Robbie and said, what is this supposed to mean? Like, what is a cardinal? What's the spiritual significance of it? Are you good?
I started joking.
Are you good? Are you alive? Do we need to do the Heimlich?
I was trying to like sniffle aside, and I started choking. I'm alive.
You're alive.
Sorry about that, fellas.
Yeah. So she's like, what's the significance of this or whatever? I looked it up, and it like could not have been more on the nose. To preface, my brother's daughter, my niece, she's 4. She kept asking like, did Chloe get to heaven? How did she make it to heaven? Is she in heaven? All this stuff. I looked up the spiritual significance of a cardinal, and it's a sign that your loved ones are telling you they made it to heaven.
Wow,
interesting.
So that would be an example of like a little thing that a being on the other side could do to influence, and it's not super hands on, but it's like a little thing like that. And then on the flip side, you think about what everybody knows about negative encounters with entities, with dark entities and stuff like that. They're like moving coat hangers,
stuff.
Yeah, to terrify you. Yeah, they're terrifying.
Whispers.
But it's nothing like they don't show up and stab you in the gut and split you open and all. They're like, play the guitar strings or like move the coat hangers.
Give you nightmares.
Because that's all they can do.
Because they gave you nightmares.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that makes sense to me. Like they can't act, they can't do as much, so they just do what they can. And there's examples of beautiful things being done, and then there's also things where it just scares the shit out of people. So yeah, I feel like if it's some entity on the other side that's like just steeped in darkness and it just wants to make other beings in this realm feel as bad as it feels, then it's gonna do a little, act out.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Shake it up.
I would say yes. So I guess here's a little life update. So me and my girlfriend, we went to New York, and it was nice. We visited the Big Apple and all that stuff. But in the hotel we were staying in, there was like a fortune teller medium that was right in front of our hotel building. Like she had her own little building or whatever.
Oh shit!
And she did my girlfriend's reading, and immediately she was like. She asked my girlfriend, she's like, who's Marcus? And she was just like, she looked at me and she's like, oh, where did that come from? And she was like, Marcus is going to be needing help really soon. And this was before he was engaged. This is before we knew he was having a kid.
No.
Anything like that. And she was like, Marcus is going to be needing help very soon. So you're going to be, tasked with helping him. And I was like, oh. And she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to my girlfriend. So I was like, okay, that's really weird. And so that was the only like notable thing, because she asked me to step out after that. I was like,
whoa.
And she was like, could have been I was picking up from him or something like that, but I feel like you're the one that needs to help him or something like that. And so not too long afterward, brother has a kid on the way, and he got married. And so there was a lot of, and he was job searching at the time. And so my girlfriend was also helping him with the job search, all that type of stuff. And so that was one thing that happened. And then when it was my turn, I did my reading, and the first thing that she said, she was like, "You seem so happy. Why do you seem so dark?" And I was like, "Oh." She's like, "I feel like there's just some type of like presence on you." And like, honest to God, and I thought, like, to me, I was just like, you need to, she was just trying to scam me or something like that. But she's like, we need to cleanse you. You have something like very wrong with your chakras. Like something is very wrong. There's something attached to you. You need to get rid of it. And I didn't do the cleansing because
it's $15.99.
it was a price that I could not afford.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, I'm going to pass. But she was very concerned throughout the entire reading of this like energy spirit that was like attached to me. And I just wanted to say, like, throughout my experience from like that I had, in the last episode that I talked about, up until this day, like that was a few years ago. That was like 6-7 years ago. I can't remember. But ever since then, every time I have like a nightmare, anytime that like, I'm a little bit spooked, it's always...
It traumatized you?
I don't know. Yes, obviously,
like
yes.
We talked about it in private. I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, it did traumatize me. There were a handful of things that traumatized me in Argentina, but that was one of them. It's like spiritually that traumatized me because every nightmare that I have, it's that figure is there. Whether I don't know if it's me imagining it or if it actually is present, but every time it's there, it's like a very, very negative, dark, themed dream. It's like a horror movie. Like there's a lot of things.
You feel the fear in your dream.
I feel the fear.
I know. I have dreams like that sometimes.
They're taunting me. They're doing something to me. It's like, and honest to God, like we just moved into our new apartment. Things are just disappearing. Like we had some tongs that we had brought in, gone. We had like a wooden like stirring spoon, gone. Like we have no idea where they are. And I was like, come on, like, did you throw it away, Carly? And she's like, no, I didn't touch it. Now I know I didn't throw them away. So we have had things that are just disappearing. Like
that's crazy.
Like
that's been happening to me and Casey at our house.
Oh, for real?
And like other kind of strange lights being on that no one turned on, like a lot of weird stuff like that.
Odd things do be happening.
Yeah, odd things do be. Do you get the feeling that maybe something's following you?
It's always in the back of my mind. It's like I never try to speak in absolutes, so I don't know. But like the mystical part of me thinks that there is like some type of negative energy that like follows me around. Like it's always in my dreams. I always have like terrible nightmares. I have anxiety. Like I get anxiety all the time. It sounds like schizo, but like in the side of my eye, sometimes I'll be like looking around and I see like something staring at me again. It always happens.
Well, I mean, let's just go ahead and for anybody who hasn't heard the first episode, I mean, again, we're talking about like a very bone-chilling encounter that you lived through. And, we're talking about a town in Argentina where there's this widespread practice of, you could say, Santeria or voodoo or whatever.
Dark magic.
And like, we haven't even gone into some of the other stories. Right. I mean, my point that I'm trying to convey to you is for anyone who might be listening and being like, what the heck? He was a victim to something that he didn't even choose to participate in. You didn't even read the candle. It's like, it's just...
You were just there.
Yeah, you were just there. And like, it's...
If y'all haven't seen that other episode and you want some context, definitely.
I mean, it was like a full-blown demonic encounter.
Intense.
But, you said the mystical part in you thinks that might be possible, that maybe it's still tormenting or whatever. But the mystical part in me says... We about to clear you, homeboy.
I would hope so.
We're about to clear you.
Yeah. But in that regard,
we're going to fix you up.
I would like to talk about more of the things that have like, jarred me. Like there are some things that like
real witchcraft type shit.
Witchcraft. And like the amount of times in Argentina that we would encounter like voodoo people or like, and they're not called voodoo people, they're called umbandistas, but like the amount of times that we would encounter them would be very slim. But every time we did encounter them, they always like would say like, if you don't leave, I'll put a hex on you, or if you don't leave, I'll put a curse on you, or like this or that, or like you shouldn't do this. There were a lot of negative feelings from them towards us.
Right.
And so we would always walk around, and especially in like more rural areas, there would always be like little, like, they weren't like necessarily pentagrams, but they were like diagrams drawn on the ground in like chalk or something like that. I don't know. And then we'd always see like the chicken remains, or we'd see like small animal bone remains and stuff like that. So they were everywhere.
So the question is, why are the remains there, right? Elaborate for the listener.
So I never saw it happen, but there are secondhand experiences that I've heard where people would go out dressed in robes. They would sacrifice a chicken in a specific spot. I don't know for what, like what I've been told is it's to bless like the village, or to bless like this certain plot of neighbors or something like that. Other reasons I could not say, I don't know, but that was what was explained to me. But and they would just sacrifice a chicken or, you know, a small animal, and then they would burn it or whatever. And so there was that. But there was another story where I was living on the coast. Dang it, what's the name? I can't remember the name of the town, but it was on the beach pretty much, and we weren't allowed to go out at night because after like 9:30, 10:30, that was like our curfew. It's like bad things happen at night. Obviously, you have to come home. But some of the elders would sneak out, and they would just, you know, tour around. I don't know what they would do, but but there was one that had told me that he was walking down by the beach, and that he saw a group of people with a small like boat, like a very small craft, like a basket sized. And they were all in robes, brown robes, and they were walking out into the ocean, and they lit the little like boat on fire, and they set it out to sea, and that they said that they had like more or less like sent out this like burnt offering or whatever, and that's all they knew. So there were odd things happening. It was there were some odd things happening
everywhere.
Yeah, whether you realized it or not, it was pretty prevalent. I also had a lunch. I had a lunch with this lady who her husband was Mormon, but she herself was Umbandista. And within Umbandista, there's like two different like sects. There's like the bad one and there's like the good one. And so what their practice is they allow spirits to incorporate their body and to like achieve like absolution or whatever. They do whatever they like didn't get to achieve in this life. And so
that's like a tulpa.
More or less, yeah. So I asked this lady, I was like, have you had a spirit inside of you? And she's like, I've had up to 3 at the same time. And she's like, it's amazing. It's enjoyable. And she was like, you get a baptism of like flowers and herbs and stuff like that. And they allow the spirit to enter you. And then she's like, sometimes I'll be just going to work. And then the voice inside my head will be like, I want to spend the day in the park. And I'll just ditch work and go spend the day in the park. Or I want to go jump rope, and she'll go and jump rope. And
please the spirit.
But that's what she feels. She's like, it's a voice in my head that tells me I want to do this now. And it's something that she has no interest in doing. Right. But it's something that the spirit wants to do. And so she would just do that. And she said it's amazing, and that she loved it. And that when it was released, she felt that it was released.
So for her, it was a positive experience.
Right. But the other side of it is the negative one, where you allow the negative energies into your body, and that's a baptism of blood. And so I don't know if it's like human blood or...
Why would you do that?
They do it.
Wow.
They exist,
That I understand. Like from... I want to go jump rope in the park. And like that sounds like, sure, that sounds fun, but like...
It's probably a child or something.
Yeah, another spirit is like, I want to murder. Like, why would you want to let that...
Right. Well, for gain, for power, for money, for gain.
There is some type of like
exchange.
It's like, and I'm not saying
it's
that
the
like
left-hand path. It's like self-serving. Bring me, and I will serve you. You know.
So again, like I never met anyone that did the baptism of blood, but from what this lady explained to me, it was like not all of the negative spirits that people like let in want to do negative things. They don't all want to, you know, kill and steal and stuff like that. They just want to absolve themselves of the negative things that they did in this life. So, I mean, if it helps them, a lot of them report that they would just go to church more. Like the person that would, you know, that was normally an Umbandista
wants to atone.
They want to atone, so they would go to like a Catholic church or whatever church was, you know, they're of the spirit's choosing and stuff like that. And she didn't explain anything if they wanted to do anything negative, so I can't say, but I would imagine that there still would be some spirits that were
for
angry.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be all sides of the spectrum, right? if we're opening the door and saying that this stuff's going on the other side, there's obviously still a spectrum there.
We talked about this briefly on our Larry Burke episode for anybody out there that wants to hear a little bit of that conversation. But I cannot remember the name of the gentleman. This could have been like 10 years ago, but my dad had a friend who was doing some sort of, it was like a regression therapist or something. And throughout his work, he started to notice that people had actual like spirits attached to their aura. Like let's just hypothetical, you know, I don't remember the exact case scenarios, but the hypothetical was like, I remember the context, and it was like, you know, someone's struggling with addiction, just really suffering and miserable and depressed. They come in, they get a regression, and it's like there's another spirit inside of them that like died of drug use. And it's like,
interesting.
It's the idea
helping
that
him self-correct.
No, like latched onto him and making him struggle with addiction.
I was thinking it was going to help him better.
No. So like, you know what? Yes. Spirits that have suffered, they can, you know, when we're in these low vibrational states, these suffering negative spirits can latch onto us, and you know, someone who's alcoholic might have one of those spirits or whatever. And it's like the idea is that we can clear them. He would clear them from people, and they would get better through like regressions.
Right.
You know, like he would speak to the spirit when they're in this regressed state and clear it away, and they start recovering. And like, I think it supports what you're saying. Like, I think it's real.
Yeah, I would say from the lady that I talked to, yes, she was very convinced of it. There were also a handful of individuals that I did encounter that there was just one place in what was it called? Oh, geez, I can't remember I can't remember. Gutierrez, the area of the Gutierrez. And I was with this guy, his name was Dahlgren, and there was just this one particular day. We had an appointment on one side of the town, and then we had a dinner at the other side of the town. And to get to the other side of the town, there was a large like ravine that we would have to cross, and it was just like a small dirt path. And so during the start of the day, every corner there was like an umbandista. They were like doing stuff, saying stuff. There was this one man who was just standing on the corner, and he kept like fidgeting. He kept like skipping, jumping, like, but he was standing still. He was just like fidgeting, jumping or whatever. And as we passed him, he said, "Don't go near the water." And so we were just like, we thought he was great. We thought he was just you know, out of his mind, or on drugs or something like that. And so he's like, "Don't go near the water." And we were like, "Okay." And then he's like, "Guys," and then we were like, "What?" And he's just like, a completely different voice. He's just like, "Don't go near the water." Like, it was more feminine this time. And so we were like, oh, okay. And then like, as we were leaving, he did another like skip jump thing. And then he just started screaming, "Don't go near the water. Don't go near the water." And so we just kind of hightailed it.
Whoa.
And so we're walking through the town, and we're like on a different section of the town. We're probably a handful of blocks away from this dude. And there's this like tall, skinny dude. And he had dreads, and he was just looking at us, and his mouth was open. He was drooling. And so he was just like, and so we were just like, "Can we help you?" As a missionary, you're supposed to talk to everyone. You're supposed to like preach the word to everyone. So this guy's like, you know, calling us over. So we're like, okay, let's go talk to him. And this guy's just staring at it. I look at his eyes, completely black, no whites. He had no whites in his eyes, completely black.
No.
And so we were just like, "Can we help you? Do you need assistance? Like, are you healthy? Are you okay?" And he didn't say a single word. And so we were like, "Okay, well, you have a nice day." And so we just walked away. And so we go to, you know, another block, and we're talking to people. Dude followed us. He just stood on the corner of the block and just watched us, mouth open, still drooling. We go to a different block. And like hours go by, and he's still following us. He followed us the entire day. And then we're like, okay, well, it's getting a little late. You know, it's getting like 7:00. We have a dinner appointment with some members of the church. And so they were going to give us some food. They live on the other side of town. So we decided to hightail it. Dude is still following us the entire day. He didn't have anything to do. He just followed us and stared at us all day.
All day.
As soon as we get to this little ravine, he just hightailed it. He just turned around and walked away. And so we were like, finally, he's gone. Like, awesome. We don't have to worry about
the water.
And right near the ravine, right. And so we start crossing this little ravine, and it had been raining. we were midway through this little ravine, and it's fairly long. It was probably like 2 blocks worth of like bridge or whatever. Downpour immediately, and so it's like a little bit slippery. The mud's getting a little slick, and so we're slipping. Big gust of wind, and when I say big gust of wind, I'm saying like push you type of wind.
Could have like took you off the ground.
Yeah, more or less. And so Dahlgren's behind me, and all I feel is 2 giant hands push me, and I almost fall in the ravine. Like, and it's probably like 6 feet of water, and it's like sewage water. It's not normal water. It's sewage water. Ooh. And so I was like, Dahlgren, like, what is wrong with you? Like, I get up and I'm like, what is wrong with you, dude? He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, why did you push me? And we would play jokes on each other all the time. We'd like throw rocks at each other, or like I had a slingshot, we'd shoot each other in the leg or something like that. We'd do stuff all the time. And so, but I was like, and that was out of his character. So I was like, dude,
that's too far.
And I was like, that's, too far, dude. I almost fell in, and that kind of hurt. He's like, dude, I didn't do anything. You just fell. And I was just like, no, you pushed me. And he's like, no. Okay. And I was like, okay, you walk ahead of me. He gets ahead of me, and I'm like trying to, keep my balance, walking in the slick mud. Same thing. Boom. Another gust of wind. And he like falls on his hands and knees.
Oh, he fell this
He
time.
fell. No,
okay.
It wasn't me. He fell. And then he turned around. He's like, dude, I didn't push you. And I was like, I didn't push you. And so we got into a heated argument. And so he's like, let's just leave it. Let's go to dinner. So we're covered in mud at dinner. And the family's super nice to give us food. They're asking us why we're covered in mud. And we just say we slipped or whatever. They're like, okay. And they're like, guys, we can't give you a ride back. Mud's too slick. Can't get in the car. You're going to have to walk home. So it's nighttime again. We have to cross the ravine again. No wind, no rain this time. We're just walking by. Happens again.
No
both of us.
way.
Both of us get pushed. And so we were like, all right, like if we're ever going back to their house, we're like taking any other way. And so that was one of the times where I was just like, okay, something. And this is one of those times I was like, something's, not right.
And the guy telling you not to go near the water, and then the fact that the guy with the pitch black eyes got near the water and then left.
Right.
There's something like on that water or like in that water. Like
that's very weird.
So weird.
Yeah. That was one of the experiences. And then I think I can share the witch slayer story.
The witch.
Instead of demon slayer, I'm the witch slayer.
Bobby McGann, witch slayer.
Right. So I was in El Parque with my buddy Littlefield, and we were like, honestly, so we got robbed there a handful of times. We got held up in our apartment, which I can tell if you want, but everyone kind of loved us there. We both had the same birthday. It was me and Littlefield. We both had the same birthday. So like a bunch of the members were like, birthday day, like us, like, and they were ecstatic. So we got like a cake here, we got a cake at this family's house, and like we just had food all day. It was an amazing day. And this lady that was our our apartment manager, she was also a member of the church. She came up to us. She's like, guys, have you ever seen the lady with like, the boil on her face? And we were like, no. She's like, okay, well, she lives around the corner. I sometimes check on her. If you guys could check on her, when you're out, if you're in the area, go take a look at her, just to make sure she's okay. And so we were like, okay. And we never did. We could never find her. Like we would just be in the general area. We'd be like, okay, let's pass by this one street, see if she's there. She didn't have a house, so we couldn't. There was no address. She just said
she lived on the street.
Yeah, that's what we thought. And so we never saw her. And so, as Mormon missionaries, what you do sometimes is you go on like interchanges where you go with someone else's companion for the day. And so I got this companion. His name was Elder Espinosa, and he was from Mexico, and he had previously been in this area in El Parque, and he was like, "Oh, dude, I love El Parque. Have you ever seen the witch?" And I was just like, "No." He's like, "Well, she lives in this area." And I was like, okay, all right.
Saying it so casually.
Yeah.
You ever met the witch?
Yeah. So I was like,
the boil on her face? Like
the boil on her face. And so I was like, no, I've never seen her. And so he's like, okay, well, I just got to preface this. Like, if you ever see her, don't mention my name. And I was like, why? He's like, okay, well, when I first met her, she was crouching on the ground drawing in dirt. And she was just drawing. And so we were, she was just with her back towards us. So we were going to say, hey, how are you? Do you want a pamphlet or you want to learn about this and that? So we went up to her. She had drawn Espinosa in the dirt.
Wait, so you found her?
He's telling me.
Okay, got you.
So I'm on an interchange with him, and he's telling me a story when he was there, like a couple of months ago. He's like, "Don't ever mention my name to her because she knows my name for some reason."
Yeah.
So this is a couple of months ago. He
Question.
Yeah.
Did you wear name tags?
We did.
Okay, so she maybe saw his name and drew it in the dirt?
Quite possibly.
Okay.
From what he said, there was no way because this was his first time encountering her.
Okay.
And she had already written Espinosa.
So it was like some supernatural thing. She knew his name.
That's what
that's what he's saying.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. There's no way of her knowing his name.
Right.
And so he went up to her and was like, "Can we give you a pamphlet?" And he looked at the ground and it said Espinosa written out. And she turned around and she didn't say a single word. And they noticed the boil on her face. And when I say boil, I don't mean just like, like the Timmy Turner, like Fairly Odd Parents type boil. I'm talking about like mass, like a giant mass on her face.
Ugh.
And so she turned around.
Imagine, dude.
And she's like, and it's, I'll get into it later, but she like turns around at him and she says, Espinosa. And she tackles him. And Espinosa was he was a karate instructor. Not a karate instructor, or maybe he just did karate back in Mexico. But all he did was he kicked her in the face.
Oh.
He kicked her in the face. She was gonna
attack him. She's attacking him. Yeah.
She tried to grab, and he just kicked her in the face, and then they took off. And so he's like, if you guys ever see the witch, don't mention my name. I also kicked her in the face. I was like, geez, like the Mormons are like abusing this poor lady, and they're calling her the witch for some reason.
She was trying to get him.
No, well, yeah, but in my head, I was like, okay, dude, you're overreacting. You definitely like could have just
assaulted a homeless person.
You didn't need to kick her in the face, and so whatever, and. So fast forward, me and Littlefield are in El Parque, and this lady just told us, look out for this lady, or whatever her name was. People call her the witch, whatever. So we're in the area, and so we go down the street that, and this is a couple of weeks after the lady had told us, and we go down the street, and there's this lady sitting on a car back to us, and surrounded by her are like 30 wild dogs, like
30.
Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe like 15.
That's still too many dogs.
It's a lot of
more
dogs.
than you can remember.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She had a lot of dogs. And the dogs are really common in Argentina. There was always wild dogs everywhere. But she had them all congregated, just like sitting around her, standing around her, just doing whatever. Familiars. And we go up to her, and she had her back turned to us. And I was like, "Do you want a pamphlet?" And she turned around. Big old boil on her face. I was like closed, weeping. She had like ooze coming out of her boil and all this stuff. It was not a good boil. I've seen some good boils in my life, but that was not a good one.
This was a bad boil.
Yeah. It's the fact that she's a witch, man.
So the reason why they called her the witch is because she always had a pack of dogs with her, and she would always be drawing like hexagrams or like little like figures in the sand. And obviously what happened with Espinosa, that happened. And so she was like, "I've been looking for you guys." And we were like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, someone told me you can help me." And so we were like, "Yeah, we can do what we can. Like, do you need physical assistance? Do you need like monetary or like food? Do you need food or something like that?" She's like, "No, I need spiritual assistance." And so she was like, "Can you guys give me a blessing?" And we were like, "Okay, that's not like, nobody really knows that missionaries can do blessings in Argentina. Like, they know very vague things like we wear white shirts and ties and we talk your ear off." She was like, "Can I have a blessing?"
She knew
it. And so I don't know if someone told her that, but she asked for it specifically. And we were like, yeah, what seems to be the problem? She's like, "This thing on my face, it doesn't go away, and I need you to take it away from me." And we're like, "Well, we probably can't make it go away, but we can probably provide you with some comfort that it will get healed over time." And so she was like, "Yeah, I'd love that. Come to my house." And we're like, and she was standing in front of a house, and we're like, "Is this your house?" And she's like, "No, that's not my house. I live there." And she pointed, and there was like a little, like, it wasn't like a forest, but it was like a very heavily wooded area. And she's like, "Follow me, boys."
When she pointed, did you even see a house?
No, there was nothing. No.
Bro, it's like Hansel and Gretel. Yeah. She's going to eat you.
So she was like, "I live in there." And I was like, "You have a house in there?" She's like, "Yeah, I have a house in there. You've never seen it?" I was like, No, never. I've never been in there. I've never been
in there.
Candy. So we walked probably 15, 20 minutes through like heavily wooded area.
No,
and
dude.
this was already like, I was like, she's an older woman. Like there's no way she can kill us. Like
we can take her.
We can probably, and my companion, my companion at Littlefield was like a champion wrestler. He was a football player at BYU, and he was a champion. Did I say weightlifter or wrestler?
Wrestler.
So he's a champion wrestler, champion weightlifter, bodybuilder, and he played football. And so he's very big.
So and I was like, that witch's ass.
I was like, you can, and I'll chant. And
I'll bless you. I'll buff you.
I'll kick her in the face.
You're the spellcaster.
And so we're walking for 15 minutes. And so finally, like we start getting in the general vicinity where it starts to like get less wooded. She's like, we're almost here. We're almost here. And as we're walking through it, she just has like things hung up by strings. Like there's like baby dolls. There's pieces
Blair
of
Witch. Blair Witch.
It's Blair Witch, bro.
Yes, straight out of the movie Blair Witch. She has all types of things. And she had Mormon pamphlets hung up. Like she had like... She had hung up Mormon little pamphlets. She had a bunch of stuff. She had like a Bible and a tree, and she had like a little cross here and there, glass, there were little crystals, there was everything. She had a bunch of stuff hung up, and it was all around her yard. And so we get to her house, and it was just literally like a handful of like plywood things, like put together, and like a tarp on top.
In the woods.
In the woods. And then she had a mattress out front with a little blanket. Yeah, outside. And then she had a blanket on top of it. And she's like, we can sit here. And so we sat there and we were like, okay, well, usually what we do is we, get some information about like what is what is your ailment or like whatever to give the blessing. So we just have some general idea. And so she's like, well, I just have this like boil. I think it's cancer. Like, can you cure cancer? And I was like, oh, I've never cured cancer before. Never done that before. And so she's like, this is my problem and like whatever. And I always feel dark and I always feel depressed and I was like, okay, all right, that we can go on. And neither of us had like the consecrated oil that we carry. Like we were supposed to have it, but we forgot it. And so we were like, okay, we forgot our oil. We have to go back to get it. And so she's like, okay, I'll wait here. You guys know how to get back. So we go back, and the way home, we're not feeling good. We're like, this is kind of sketchy. Like this doesn't feel right. And so we flipped a coin. We were like, are we going to do it or are we just going to ditch it? And it landed heads or whatever, and we were going to do it. And so we grab the oil and we come back. And generally, so I just give a little preface to how blessings work. For typical blessings, like you put the oil on people's heads and you put your hands on their head, and then it's more or less a prayer, but like you're supposed to like attune yourself to like the spirit or whatever, and that will guide what is said. And so I've given many blessings, and the majority of them, I don't speak like I normally speak. I speak very fluidly. I have words to say that are like pertinent to, and there have been a handful of times that I've said things to a person that they had never mentioned that they were saying it was ailing them, like a sibling.
Was coming through you.
Something was coming through me, and that's a handful of one-off experiences that I thought were really cool. And so with this lady, we came back to her. And so she was like, okay, who's going to give the blessing? And we were like, well, we typically ask who you want to, and you can choose either of us and whichever one. And she pointed to me. And I was just like, okay, I guess I'm going to do it. And again, like I don't have, like my Spanish was not very good at the time or whatever. And so I had some anxiety that I was going to struggle and like what I was going to say. And so she's like, okay, ready. And so we put the oil on her head, and I put my hands on her head, and like I can't tell you, like it wasn't physical pain, but it was like mental anguish that I like felt the entire time. I was like I was stopping myself from saying the things that were coming to my head because all I could say was just like it felt like you have a painful journey ahead of you. Like there's despair in front of you. Like there is nothing good to come.
Oh my
like that
God.
Is all I could think of. That is the only thing that was coming to my mind. And I wouldn't say any of it. And so Littlefield's like, he's like tapping me. Like we have our hands like this, and his hand's on top of mine. And he's like tapping my hand. He's like,
say something.
Say something. And I could not physically say anything good. And so
all you felt was bad.
All I felt was bad. And so all I said was, everything is going to be okay. All I could say was, everything's going to be okay. The end of your ailment is near. And that's all I said. And I said that in the name of Jesus Christ. And I said, amen. And she's like, I do feel better. And I was like, oh, that's good, because I couldn't say anything else. And so, boom, we're out of there. We're like, the day is over. Like, we're not doing anything else because we just felt weird.
You left immediately.
Yes, we left immediately afterwards. We went back to our apartment and we just chilled. And so the next day, oddly enough, was Sunday. Oh, I'm forgetting to say this. That day was Saturday. And so she had said, I do feel better. And we're like, do you want to come to church with us tomorrow? We'll come pick you up right here on the street where we went into the woods, and we can walk to church together. And she's like, yes, I would love that. And so we were like, awesome. We can take someone to church. Maybe she'll feel better going to church. Maybe she'll make some friends, whatever. And so tomorrow, the next day was Sunday. And so we were like, okay, we got to get up a little bit early. Got to get ready. We're going to go pick up the lady, the witch. And so we go there, and we stood at the corner of this little wooded area for a little while. We stood there for probably 10 minutes. And then we went in. She wasn't at her house. And so we were just like, okay, I guess she didn't want to come, which was very typical of people that said they wanted to go to church.
Sure, yeah.
And so we just went to church. And then while we're at church, our landlord, our apartment manager lady, was a member. I had said that earlier. She came up to us and she's like, and she was late for church. And she was like, elders, did you guys go and talk to the witch, like I had said? And we were like, yeah, we actually visited her yesterday. She's like, okay, well, I just had a strange interaction with the police. She died on the street in front of your apartment building.
Oh, wait. In front of your apartment building?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
God.
She was...
Was it Saturday night? Was it Sunday morning?
I don't know.
You don't know?
All she said was she was late to church and we left early. So I want to say that from the time that we left to the time that our manager, got to church, because church is 3 hours in Mormon church. She was gone for the first 2 hours. They had found the witch's lady dead in front of our apartment building.
Dude, so she walked. Did she even know you lived there?
Mm-mm.
So she walked to your apartment building just to die in front of your building.
Mm-hmm.
That was for you.
She died.
But that was for you.
That was intentional.
Yeah. And so I was always freaked out about that. I was like,
you killed a witch.
Not to make light of it, but yes, I feel like for some reason the only thing I could say was just like you're ending the suffering that's happening, and then she died in front of our apartment complex, and I was like,
what the heck, dude?
Yeah, that was one of the odder experiences.
Whoa!
For sure.
Oh my God. Okay, I feel like the way that my mind is making sense of it is this is a person who has obviously devoted their life to dark practices, dark magic, whatever you want to call it. And the physical body, this incarnation of this soul, has done so much evil and so much darkness that it was this incarnation is just not redeemable. This incarnation is done. We just got to go to the next one and see if it works better next time. And it was she was waiting for any sort of divine interference to come in and just let that happen.
Interesting.
And she maybe even knew.
My thing is why you? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
You ever thought about that? Of all the thousands of people she's ever met throughout her life, why did she have this freaky experience and drop dead in front of your apartment, dude? That's weird.
Yeah, I didn't kick her in the face, so maybe I was the first nicest person
you just won a spiritual battle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's all divine, it's already written. It's all destiny. So she just saw it.
No matter what, it was going to be him.
Right. It was always going to be you. And she could obviously see things that no one else could see.
Yeah,
she knew Homeboy's name before he walked up.
She had the Mormon pamphlet.
I think she knew you. I think she knew. I don't think she knew you. I think she knew the end was near. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think no one else did that, right? You all were the only people that she invited to her home.
Right.
And then I think it happened to be you. And then I also think that you channeled in that moment and peered into the future, and you knew exactly what was going to happen. And so I don't think you did anything except channel the future, which is crazy in itself.
Part of me, the fantastical part of me wants to say that like I want to say that there is some type of like leash or tether when you're like going on in the spiritual like practices that like in the case for like entities that latch onto people. And I want to say that like something was negative that was attached onto her, and I possibly just broke the tether in that time. And that allowed her just to move on.
To move on, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
I don't.
Maybe
I don't know.
you ended her suffering.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she was obviously.
You blessed the witch.
A very tortured soul living on a mattress in a plywood hut in the woods with all this shit hanging on the trees.
Yeah.
Talking about like cursing and trying to tackle people. I mean, she was messed up, man. She was crazy from all the probably spirits inside of her, to be honest. I mean, I'm serious.
I don't know. I don't know anything about this lady other than that she would know people's names. She would always draw those things. So I'm sure she was heavily into the darker side of the occult.
Unfortunately, just through being in our situation where we're known about to the greater public, with our little UFO case or whatever, like I have met people like that I'm like, there is something else behind those eyes.
Right.
And it's a very uncomfortable feeling.
But it's very noticeable sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's just like, especially if you're sensitive to energy. Look, that motherfucker right there, he's scary. There's people that are just like sensitive to energy. There was this, there's this like beer and wine store in Fayetteville, Cherie's.
I haven't heard of it. No.
It's been around for like 30 years. It just closed during COVID. But the owner, Cherie, she was like very into witchcraft. Everything. There's all kind of spiritual stuff in there, whatever. And I had this youth pastor. My youth pastor as a kid, his name was Joel, and he's like super devout, like a kind person, but super knowledgeable, like a real, dedicated spiritual man. And he said the first time he ever walked in there, she like stopped what she was doing and looked at him, and she was like, what did she say exactly?
It's funny, man. I was thinking about this story in my head when he started telling the
You
witch.
remember this?
Yes.
She said something to him like
she recognized that he was a Christian.
Yeah, she said there's something strong surrounding you. There's something very strong surrounding you, and she said something vague to the effect of like, is he with you, or like something along those lines. And Joel said, Jesus? And like she was like kind of like, yeah. And he was like, yes, ma'am. And she was like, okay, I kindly have to ask you to leave.
Really?
The thing that's important to mention about this guy is you would look at this man and you would not think he's some spiritual dude. I mean, like not stereotyping. I'm just being for real.
Right.
Like you could say he had gauges all over, piercings, hella tattoos. He looked like a death metal head because he was.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't look like a pastor, but yeah, that.
Yeah, you'd look at him and be like, the typical person would be like, that's a Satanist, or
right.
something
But
like
he really wasn't. He was a very devout
She
Christian.
took one look at him and was like, is
could
he
feel it.
with you?
That makes you think of the what's the quote? The armor of God.
Yeah. Jesus Christ! The dude dancing.
Jesus God!
I love that man.
I love him too.
God
man.
bless him.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
I love him.
He's awesome. But I don't know. It's like some people are just hypersensitive, and whether that's through practice or whether it's like some kind of natural thing, I feel like that woman, she just saw it all. She saw everything, and like she was tapped fully in, and
she gave away her humanity to be a vessel to those spirits. So it's like, she probably had knowledge that we don't have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm. Yes.
Right.
But like, I don't think she had any like humanity
left.
Yeah.
It was over, and
Right.
she probably knew it.
It was deforming her body, dude. Like,
Very well could have been.
Well, that's the old folklore about witches, is they grow those boils and warts and stuff from all the black magic.
They manifest themselves physically through ailment.
Yeah. Like, that's like a textbook witch. She lived in a hut in the woods.
Literally. Follow me to my house in the woods, like Hansel and Gretel.
And had effigies hanging from trees and like...
We literally, the last time he was here was... well, maybe not technically. Was it Halloween weekend?
I think so.
The last time?
Alex.
No, it had to be.
Yeah.
It had to be because we recorded the Halloween episode weeks before that.
Right.
Yeah. So the last time he was here, we just watched Blair Witch Project.
Oh, really?
For their first
That was
time.
my first time.
And it's, dude, it's literally like, in the woods, effigies hanging in the trees, the little stone mounds, and like.
I know it sounds like I'm making this up. Like it does sound like it's Blair Witch, but I promise you, like.
No. I think Blair Witch is getting that from real stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, there's a reason that there's thousands of years of folklore about witches, and they're all the same. Like, it's always the same stuff. Then you just happen to meet a woman that everybody calls the witch, and it's like textbook.
Well, she knew the dude's name, and like all of it, man. Like,
and I don't want to say that it was like anything that I did. Obviously, like I was like the vessel of which things happened, but like I don't necessarily think that the power came from like my ability. I think every human being, whoever, from whatever religious background or spiritual background, could have been that vessel.
Totally.
Right.
Could have been that vessel.
At the end of the day, the way I see it is like people out there have their opinions on Mormonism, and obviously you're not a part of it anymore.
Right.
So there's a part of you that says, I don't 100% commit to this anymore. We can argue all day. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is Christianity right? Is it wrong? It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what does matter is the individual being who believes that it's real, believes that it's right, and has that genuine desire to serve God. And you had that.
Right.
You had that mindset. I serve God. I am a part of this light.
Right.
You had the intention to spread that light.
For sure.
Doesn't matter if every Mormon practice was right or wrong.
Right.
Because you had that intention, and it was using you.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I personally believe God is bigger than any practice. God can see, maybe you're a part of this practice that, doesn't have every little part right, but like, I see what you mean.
He sees the intention.
I see what you feel, and I see what you're trying to do.
Right.
I'm going to use you, or I'm going to be a part of you.
For sure.
You're trying.
I agree.
I do think that light was with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Truly.
For sure.
And still is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's like the other encounter. You just happen to be there.
There were very few coincidental experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple more things I want to hit, and then we can wrap.
Yeah.
You told me this story several weeks ago, the drums.
So yes,
it's a little bit of a shorter one, but it's super fascinating.
I also have another story. I'd like to touch on too.
Yeah.
Again, it's all happenstance. It all happens like very conveniently. But like for the one that you're talking about with the drums, we had gone to this girl's house, and it was fairly late at night. So we were like, "Can we come in?" And she's like, "Actually, no one's home." We had a rule as missionaries that we're not allowed to enter the home of like a single female just because we're two males.
Sure.
Right.
And we just don't want to disrupt anything like that or like cause any trouble. So we're like, "Okay, well, your dad's not home, so we can't come in." She's like, "Okay, well, we can plan another time when my dad's home and whatever." And so that was cool. And so we just decided to walk around in the block, and it was getting late, and so we just decided to, talk to whoever we could, but it was getting late. We didn't want to disturb people too much, so we just started to head home. But like right in front of the girl's house that we had gone to, we passed by her house again. In front of her house was it was like a rentable area. It was like a little facility that people could have. It was like a communal area that people could rent out.
Oh yeah,
but it was enclosed. Yeah, for events, for weddings or whatever. But this umbandista, this voodoo practicing religion, would frequently rent it out on the weekends. And so, So how we knew is because there were windows, there were very slim windows that we could see in, and we could just see people gathering around. There was big old drums and whatever, and that's all we saw for the time being. But we started walking away because it was getting dark, and all we hear is the drums start, and it's like, and we're like, oh, oh. I was like, oh, that sounds cool, and so that was mainly the majority of it. I was like, that sounds really cool, and so. Whatever. A few days go by, and I'm talking to a different elder. That we had a little reunion, and there was this one elder, Smith, who he had gone to Africa as well, and they said that they also have similar practices with drums or whatever. And he was like, you got to be careful with the drums because
I can add to that too.
Because they do have a certain
knowing people who have experienced the drums.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So what this guy told me, he was like, be careful. When I was in Africa, they said if you hear drums at night, not to go out. They're very enticing. They're
it gets you in a trance.
It gets you in a trance.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, I didn't think anything of it. Again, very ignorant. And we're out in the same area. We go back to this girl's house. Again, dad's not home. And so we're like, okay, we'll just walk around in the area. And we start heading back home again. And again, like they're there. Drums are immediate. And so like I'm just hearing the drums and I'm like, do you just want to go check it out? Like I'm just talking to my dad. I'm like, you just want to go check it out? So we like, kind of like dance around. The doors were closed, so we couldn't really get in. And so we're like, no, we got to get home. And so we're just walking home and we just keep hearing the drums. And every time I'm just looking back and I just had this insane feeling. I was like, dude, I want to go see what's going on. I just had this compulsion to just keep going back. And then like throughout the rest of the night, I'm sleeping in bed. Like I just hear the drums. I'm like, it was kind of like Jumanji, like the Jumanji drums.
Yeah,
like they're
very
like mystical,
rhythmic, tribal.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like it just like I could not control myself from like thinking of being there.
Like Jumanji.
It was just like I wish I could be in there. And still to this day, like I hear those type of like rhythmic drums. I'm like, it brings me back to that exact moment where I'm like, that was the strongest I ever felt. And I was like, wow. I just want to be in there. Like I could have busted down the doors and gone in there if I really had the gumption to, but that was a moment where I was just like, that was something I could not explain. And it was like physically, I could not control myself.
I've seen videos in Africa of like drum circles where they would do magical acts, like eat fire and put it in their eyeballs and stuff, and they weren't harmed. Cause it's this guy, John Alexander, Colonel John Alexander, who he's writes in my dad's book, and he's written about my dad in his book. He was on the History Channel with us. He's just he's like the guy for the United States government who, for the last 50 years behind the scenes, has been in charge of studying the paranormal. So he's gone literally all over the world to even like remote locations 100 miles out in the wilderness of Mongolia, just for the specific day in the year where the Mongolian reindeer shaman would do these like
interesting
shamanic rituals and stuff. He's going to observe them in person. He's like backpacking, swimming with great white sharks. Like he's just doing the craziest stuff, dude. He's like a real life Indiana Jones. And he came to our house for the first time in 2015. And he had all these videos about, he showed us the Mongolian reindeer shaman when he and his wife were there in person. And he showed us that they would just do this rhythmic drumming in Africa. And I have to say, dude, I've been a drummer my whole life, since I was 16, not my whole life. And I had never heard drumming like that. It's very distinct. It's very. You feel it like inside you. And while he was showing us this video that he captured in his research, I'm talking like he's standing there in the footage with all these people, and they're all around him, and they're like dancing around with fire, and they're eating it, and they're not harmed. They're doing these weird miracles, and there's people in a circle around this bonfire, and they're and they'll have other people. It's like a marching band where they have different drums. And they'll inflect up. It's like it's rhythmic, it's musical,
it sounds
insane,
awesome.
Dude. They have all these different pitches that they're playing at the right point, and he's explaining how it just gets you into this trance state of mind where they can do these incredible feats. Like literally, dude, they're putting fire in their eyeballs like this. And I saw the video. They weren't burning, nothing. They're putting it in their mouth.
Oh my gosh, this is something that I know almost nothing about. Like I've always heard people like drum circles, it's a spiritual thing, blah, 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 whatever. I don't know almost anything about it. And that sounds so wild.
It can be good too. Right. It can be used for good things.
I can still feel it from my trip.
Really?
Did you hear drums?
Yeah.
What?
On
your mushroom trip.
Yeah.
I thought you meant your mountain trip.
Yeah, I had this it was in my head. And it was the same type of thing. It was just like it was very
it's rhythmic.
And I kept wanting to hear it like more and more and more.
Right.
Yeah. It's so strange.
Well, what's weird, I'm just remembering this. Last weekend, I was in the mountains, and me and Casey were wandering around downtown Waynesville, and we were looking for just like a coffee place to go and whatever. And it was like 5 or 6 at night, whatever. We had just had dinner. We were just like walking around, and we passed by this one place that looked like weird on the inside, and there was no one inside, but the door was open. And it looked like it was a coffee place, but it said kava. You know, the
K-A-V-A?
Like the herb that people take, kind of like kratom?
Yeah, so it was supposed to be like a kava bar or whatever. And so I got on my phone, and I was like, well, I want coffee. I don't want kava, whatever. And I was like, let me look for a place. No coffee places anywhere around us, which was like...
That's weird.
Weird. Yeah. We just happened to be like on the edge of Waynesville. And I was like, all right, well, you want to see if this place has coffee or something? And so we walked in, and there was one guy behind the counter, and he was super nice, super cool, and whatever. I was like, do you have coffee? And he's like, yeah, totally. Made like the best coffee I've ever had. This is just a guy who's hyper obsessed with coffee. He was also a former UFC fighter.
Wow.
Like he's been on TV and like all kinds of stuff, but then he did ayahuasca and was like left it all and changed his whole life and got really into coffee. So anyway, me and Casey are sitting there chopping it up with this guy. He's so cool. We're talking about mushrooms and ayahuasca and all this awesome stuff, whatever. And then this other guy walks in who like looks like Johnny Depp mixed with like Mickey Rourke, like a very, very strange looking guy. And he's like hippie vibe, like super cool, whatever. And anyway, we struck up like a 20-minute conversation with him about drum circles.
Really?
What?
It's just
that was
like,
this past weekend too.
That's crazy.
He just got back.
It's kind of really weird and uncanny that I've never even had a conversation about drum circles till last weekend, and then now we're sitting on this show talking about it right now. Like, I don't know, that's a weird convergence to me.
And Espinosa in the sand.
That's what's by the way, the guy that walked in talking about the drum circles walked in like immediately after I ordered a kava and I took a sip of it.
What was that like? I've never had any experience with that.
I've done it before.
What's the purpose of it? I'm just curious.
Well, I didn't know, but apparently it is like a spiritual practice. It's like one of those spiritual medicines, like, you know, all the other ones that you know of or whatever. But the guy behind the counter, he was telling me all about it, and it was so cool. But it's like
it's all over Wilmington too. I've just never.
It tastes awful. First of all, awful. And but it has this, like, a couple minutes after drinking it, your whole entire mouth will go completely numb.
Interesting.
And then another like 5 minutes later, your whole body goes numb. It's like, it feels like taking a muscle relaxer.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever taken a muscle relaxer.
I have, yeah. But
it makes your body feel like it's and then also it has this effect on your mind where you think about everything, at least in my experience, like so much more simply. There's not all these extraneous crazy, your thoughts are like hyper focused, and it like just very chill, and it almost felt like a kind of flow state. I was just like, damn, I'm chilling right now. Like, you know, it wasn't anything crazy.
You weren't tripping. You weren't altered.
No visuals.
Yeah. I mean, it's legal. You can just walk right in and get it. So it can't be that crazy.
No. And it was really cool, though. The experience was awesome. So I got some to go, and I did some in the Airbnb.
Is this something that you'd recommend?
I've only done it a handful of times. The only other time was, it was like back in college. I went to visit Nathan in Boone, and he was like, there's this thing called kava, and I'd never heard of it. And we ate it in the form of a chocolate bar, and everybody in, like, there was like 10 people in the room. We were all literally like slumped, completely slumped, but we were all feeling great. I mean, I've had a couple of positive experiences with it. I wouldn't say I've like tried it enough to necessarily recommend it, but I don't know, if you feel like it, give it a shot. It definitely seems safe. You know. All right. I don't know if it's like a day.
It's not like a drug or anything.
Oh, dude, you get it at a coffee bar.
It's like a herb. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it at a coffee bar. It just tastes like dirt. It's like drinking dirt.
You know what's popping up right now too is ceremonial cacao powder, like raw cacao.
Yeah, the raw cacao.
It has effects. I haven't tried it, but
I've never tried it either. But some people, I want to say people snort it. Like, not snort it, but like, you know, with like the tobacco that they like inhale it really quickly.
Snuff.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently you can do it like that too. And it's supposedly like cacao ceremonies.
It makes you have bursts of euphoria, and positivity, and
sounds
gratitude.
like
and stuff. It's just raw chocolate.
It sounds like a straight edge party.
It sounds like a hippie party.
Right. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's go get some.
Yeah, that's wild, man. That's cool, but the kava thing, that's wild that you brought that up, because I've seen it all around Wilmington popping up, but I'm like, I knew what it was, but I just never cared enough to look into it. So who knows? I'd like to try it.
No negatives for me.
Yeah,
for sure.
Interesting.
Just chill.
So there was something else I wanted to hit.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it can be brief, but sky watching.
Well, yeah.
Just you know, like what you saw, what you.
So I'll relate one in Argentina, and then we recently went sky watching. So there was this one time in Argentina that I sky watched unintentionally before I even
you knew about all this.
And I was just like, I was kind of, down on my luck. I was kind of in like a low place. And so I also had like an herbal drink, mate in Argentina. It's like,
like yerba mate.
Yerba mate.
That's cool stuff.
It's not like the cold drink. It's like the hot herb with the hot water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was just drinking that outside, and I was trying to be by myself.
Is that the one that was like the hella green powder on top? That's like, okay.
Yeah, with the straw and like the special cup. Yeah.
Okay.
That stuff is special, man.
I'm like, to be honest, it'll make you shit your pants your first time.
Yeah, I believe it.
But it's pretty good. So I went outside and I like had my little mate, and I was just like, man, like, I just want to see something. Like, I was just really in like a mode. I just want to see something. I was just like, let me see a shooting star. Let me see like a light, or like, let me see something cool. And it was like exactly what I saw at your dad's house. It was just like a little star. It's like a zoop. And then it just like chilled there for a little bit, and it was like zoop, and it just disappeared. And I was like, whoa.
Damn.
And at that time, I was like, shooting star. Cool.
Yeah. Shooting star that stopped in the middle of the sky.
You didn't have a frame of reference.
No. I was just like, that's just a shooting star.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all I thought. But looking back on it now, I was like, okay, like maybe I'm misremembering, but I do remember it like stopping slightly. So, and that's what I have seen at the Bledsoe's house. But
that's exactly what you saw.
Yeah. Well, what's
Same
crazy
thing.
is so during my brother's wedding, the night before, we all came over, chilled, and it was a little foggy.
Both nights.
Yeah, we went 2 nights in a row, and the first night was pretty foggy, but we did some cloud busting, and there was like a little pocket, and we did see, I want to say at least one in the clouds, but there was one that was like trailing the forest like outline, or like the wood outline, like a little further back, and it was pretty low to the ground, so it was just kind of weaving its way through the woods. But the next night, we're all just chilling again. It's pretty late. Well, maybe it's not late. It was just kind of.
Well, it was after the wedding. It was about 11 o'clock.
Oh yeah, maybe it was
10 or 11 o'clock.
Yeah. And it was popping off. There were quite a few, weren't there? There was probably at least like 10.
Yeah, for sure. Damn. Now, and like, it's crazy too that it worked out that way, where there was more on the second night, because Dad and I mean, we're always talking privately, like, we just feeling the vibe out, and we were convinced that the first night was so quiet because there were some friends in town, like Alan and I'm trying to think of Marki's friend's name. Saxon. Yeah, a couple of guys who we had never met.
Right. And they're fairly skeptical too.
Have no clue. They're just there. You know what I mean? And like the first night was like Marki and Bobby had already seen many times, So like when they're around, it's like pop, 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 pop. But then the friends show up, it's like whoop, one little light, and they're like,
it was a pretty weak show.
Yeah, I wish I could see more.
But they did see something. But again, like, I think they were still skeptical. Like, they had saw something. I was like, okay, I know what that is. Bledsoe's obviously know what it is. But they were just like, like, could it be a satellite? And I was like, come on, we've done this before. We've done this before. Yeah, it could be a satellite. Most likely not.
Yeah, right.
But the second night, boom, popping off. And so Alan was there. And Alan is more skeptical than Saxon. Saxon believes in, like, a bunch of stuff, but he's skeptical when like seeing firsthand. But Alan is just skeptical of even the concept. And so he saw something. He's like, "Whoa, that is kind of strange." He was like opening up to it, and he's like, "That is kind of strange. Like, it is moving like in an odd direction. It did curve a little bit. It did turn." I was like, well, it was happening. And so we saw him. We saw him in the tree line. We saw him up in the sky. But at the same time, nobody was paying attention. Well, it was like intermingling. Everyone was kind of like in a chit chat mode. But I was kind of just like staring off, and I just saw, like, this was the craziest one I've ever seen. Like, it was it permeated the sky. It was full on, just crazy. But it was like a yellowish white, like it was like a ball with a tail, and it just zipped into the sky. And I was like, whoa. Like, I was like, guys, it's right there. It just zipped in.
Did they see it?
No one saw it. And I'm not saying it just zipped in and it like disappeared. It zipped in and stayed there. I was like, guys, it's right there. And it just zipped out as soon as I said it.
But again, it's like, you believed you got the sight.
Yeah, I was. Hey, I'm not kidding. It was like the most like brightest thing I'd ever seen, and it had a long streak of a tail
across the sky,
and it stopped too. It completely stopped,
which is kind of like what it did the first time.
Well, yeah, I mean, in Argentina, sure, yeah, it is very similar,
which is crazy. That tells me it was a personal thing, and it was like almost a reminder, like, yo, what you saw that night was this,
right?
It's the same.
But I didn't at that time. I didn't remember the experience that I had in Argentina. There was just this like one-off experience, but like this time it was just so bright, long, beautiful tail. And then as soon as I was like, it stopped. It's right there. As soon as I said it, everyone was like, whoa. And then it's like, and I was like, oh, come on. They're playing some joke on me. Yeah.
Damn.
It was pretty cool. And Alan got a video of it. He has a video of it that I think he looks at it like every other day.
Oh, really? For real?
Yeah.
He's never brought it up to me again.
No. Well, yeah. We've been playing COD together, so I can't believe he hasn't said anything. But
no, he's always like, controller mods.
Yeah. But yeah, and Saxon got to see some stuff. He was pretty impressed too. I haven't talked to Saxon in forever, so I'm sure they definitely enjoyed it. It was really cool.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
Strange things happen at the Bledsoe house.
Yeah, I forget that's even a thing. Yeah. Well, let's just start being more intentional about you being cleared. So that negative presence that you think might be there is no longer there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I do think you have the power. Alex is putting his hands over you.
Yeah, dude.
I do think you have the power. You know, it's just like the intention, you know, connecting with the light and like you can overcome it.
For sure. I would agree. It's a work in progress.
Oh yeah, dude. It ain't gonna happen overnight. I mean, you know, that's how it goes.
But at the end of the day, it's like it all did happen for a reason.
Yeah, I would say there were a lot of benefits that came out of it for sure. Yeah. And I think, you know, that's what opened my mind up a little bit more to like these topics. It's like
right. Then maybe that was its purpose.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Very well could be.
For sure. I'll
never know, but
right. But you can take it however you want.
I'll take it how I want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have the power.
That's. I feel like that's definitely one of the deepest episodes we've ever recorded today.
For sure.
It's pretty fun.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to end it.
Yeah.
Alex, you're shining so bright over there with your shirt.
Thank you. They'll never see it.
Oh,
because not on this episode.
I mean, you just push a button, man.
No, I don't have a camera.
Oh. All right. Well, I guess we will call it there.
All right. Let's do it.
All right.
Thanks for coming in, Bobby.
Of course.
We appreciate you, dude. This
literally
was awesome.
30 seconds away.
I know it was hard and arduous for you to make the trip, but we appreciate you.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a long walk, but there's no woods, you know.
There's no witches on the road.
No ravines with ghost hands pushing you into sludge water. I mean,
not yet, at least.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
All right, y'all. 3, 2, 1. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more, check out our other videos.
And before you go, don't forget to subscribe. See you next week. Peace.